In the winter of 1404, a delegation of Spanish ambassadors rode through a desert that shouldn't have a city. For weeks, they'd traveled east from Constantinople, crossing wastelands and mountains. Their mission? Meet the most powerful man in Asia. They expected a military camp, maybe a fortified town. What they found stopped them in their tracks. Rising from the desert were domes covered in turquoise and gold, buildings 5 stories tall, gardens with fountains running in the middle of nowhere, libraries larger than anything in Europe. The ambassadors from Spain realized they were looking at a city more magnificent than any capital they knew. They called it Samarkand. The man who built it had started as a crippled warlord. 35 years later, he ruled an empire stretching from Turkey to India. His name was Timur, and he died in the snow with 200,000 men trying to conquer China. This is the story of the most beautiful city ever built, and the man who couldn't stop conquering.
The Silk Road still has secrets.
To understand Samarkand's golden age, you need to understand Timur. And to understand Timur, you need to understand the world he was born into. The year was 1336. Central Asia was chaos. The Mongol Empire, the largest continuous land empire in history, had collapsed into warring factions. Genghis Khan's descendants were killing each other over scraps of territory. The Silk Road, once the world's richest trade route, had become a battlefield. Cities like Samarkand and Bukhara, once wealthy from commerce, were being sacked and resacked by rival warlords. Timur was born in the Barlas tribe near Kish in what's now Uzbekistan. He wasn't royalty. His father was a minor noble, essentially a warlord's lieutenant. In that world, if you wanted power, you had to take it with violence, with cunning, with alliances sealed in blood. At age 25, during a raid to steal sheep, yes, sheep, Timur took 2 arrows. One shattered his right leg, the other mangled his right hand. His enemies started calling him Timur Ilang, Timur the Lame. Europeans later corrupted this to Tamerlane. Most men would have retired, become a farmer maybe. Not Timur. He looked at his crippled leg and decided it made him stronger. He would later tell his generals, "I cannot run from my enemies. I never learned how, so I never retreat." By 1370, through a combination of military genius, strategic marriages, and ruthless elimination of rivals, Timur had seized control of Samarkand. The city was in ruins. Decades of civil war had destroyed everything. It was a shell of what it had been during Mongol prosperity. Timur stood in those ruins and made an oath. He would make Samarkand greater than Baghdad, greater than Cairo, greater than Delhi. He would make it the center of the world. But he wouldn't do it through trade. He'd do it through conquest. Every campaign he launched had the same purpose: bring back treasure, bring back artisans, bring back the talent needed to transform Samarkand from rubble into paradise. This wasn't just ambition, it was obsession. Between 1370 and 1405, Timur waged war almost continuously. But these weren't random conquests. Every campaign had one purpose: gather resources for Samarkand. His first major target was Persia. The region was wealthy, but divided. City after city fell. In 1387, he besieged Isfahan. When the city surrendered, Timur initially spared it. But when residents rebelled and killed his tax collectors, Timur's response was calculated brutality. He ordered his soldiers to build pyramids, not of stone, of skulls. 70,000 people died. The message was clear: surrender and live, resist and become an example. But here's what most people don't know. After the massacre, Timur spared the craftsmen, the tile workers, the architects, the calligraphers. He sent them to Samarkand under armed escort. Violence was a tool. The real goal was talent extraction. In 1398, Timur invaded India. Delhi, one of the richest cities in the world, was his target. The Sultan of Delhi assembled 120,000 soldiers, including war elephants armored in chainmail. Timur had a problem. His cavalry horses were terrified of elephants. His solution was brilliantly simple. He loaded camels with hay, set them on fire, and sent them charging toward the elephants. The elephants panicked, stampeded backward, and crushed their own army. Delhi fell. The sack lasted 5 days. According to the historian Sharaf ad-Din Ali Yazdi, who traveled with Timur, 100,000 prisoners were executed in a single day before the assault even began, because Timur feared they'd rebel during the battle. The treasure taken was so massive it took months to transport. Gold, jewels, silk, precious stones from every corner of India. But again, the craftsmen were spared. Master stonemasons who had built Delhi's magnificent mosques,
metal workers who created jewelry for Sultan,
weavers who produced silk finer than anything in Persia, all marched to Samarkand under guard. Timur understood something fundamental. You can steal gold, but you must preserve the hands that create beauty. In 1400, Timur turned west toward the rising Ottoman Empire.
Sultan Bayezid I, called the Thunderbolt for his rapid military campaigns, had just crushed Christian crusaders at Nicopolis.
The Ottomans seemed unstoppable, but Bayezid had been attacking Timur's vassals. It was a matter of dominance. At the Battle of Ankara in 1402, two of history's greatest military commanders faced each other. Bayezid had 85,000 soldiers. Timur had 140,000. But more importantly, Timur had psychological warfare. He bribed some of Bayezid's Anatolian vassals to defect mid-battle. He positioned his army near water sources, forcing the Ottomans to fight thirsty under the brutal Anatolian sun. The battle lasted 1 day. The Ottomans were annihilated. Bayezid himself was captured. Bayezid died in captivity within a year, possibly by suicide. The mighty Ottoman expansion into Europe was halted for a generation. The shockwave reached as far as England. European chroniclers couldn't believe the invincible Turks had been crushed. Every victory followed the same pattern. Timur would offer terms: surrender, pay tribute, send your finest craftsmen to Samarkand, and you live. Resist, and you become a warning. Most cities learned quickly. The smart ones opened their gates. By 1400, Timur controlled an empire larger than Alexander the Great's. It stretched from the Mediterranean to the borders of China, from southern Russia to the Indian Ocean. All of it funneled resources toward one place: Samarkand.
Now, here's where Timur's story becomes fascinating. Because while he was one of history's most brutal conquerors, he was also one of its greatest patrons of art and architecture. Every master craftsman brought to Samarkand was given a purpose: build something the world has never seen. And they did. The Registan became the heart of the new Samarkand. The name means sandy place. It was literally just a square where caravans gathered. Timur transformed it into an architectural masterpiece. 3 enormous madrasas, Islamic schools, faced each other across a plaza larger than St. Peter's Square in Rome. Each building was covered in geometric tile patterns of turquoise, cobalt blue, gold, and white. The craftsmanship was almost supernatural. The tile workers developed a technique called banai.
cutting tiles into geometric shapes so precisely that even today, with laser cutters and computer design, we can barely replicate it. Each pattern told a story through mathematics. Islamic law forbade depicting human figures, so artists expressed themselves through geometry. They created optical illusions where patterns seemed to move as you walked past. They encoded Quranic verses into the designs. A single wall could take years to complete. The Bibi Qanim Mosque was Timur's attempt to build the largest mosque in the Islamic world. 500 craftsmen worked constantly. 95 elephants from India hauled marble blocks weighing tons each. The main dome reached 135 feet high and 130 feet wide, taller than a 10-story building. When it was finished, Timur looked at it and reportedly said it was too small. Whether he actually demanded it be rebuilt or whether historians exaggerated his perfectionism is unclear. What's certain is that the mosque was so large that structural problems appeared within decades. The structure was simply too ambitious for 14th century engineering. But Samarkand wasn't just monuments. Timur understood that a great city needed knowledge. He established libraries that rivaled anything in Baghdad or Cairo. The Great Library of Samarkand held tens of thousands of manuscripts. Scholars came from across the Islamic world. They brought texts on astronomy, mathematics, medicine, philosophy, poetry. Greek works translated into Arabic. The scribes worked in dedicated copying rooms, reproducing texts for other libraries across the empire. A single Quran could take a master calligrapher 6 months to complete, every letter perfect, every page illuminated with gold leaf and lapis lazuli. These weren't just books, they were works of art that cost more than houses. The astronomers of Samarkand were particularly advanced. They built observatories with instruments that could measure the position of stars to within minutes of arc. They calculated the length of a year to within seconds of modern measurements, without telescopes. This knowledge enabled navigation, calendar reform, and architectural achievements like precisely orienting mosques toward Mecca. The gardens were legendary. Timur was obsessed with gardens. He had seen the gardens of Persia, of India, of China. He wanted gardens that surpassed them all. Using sophisticated irrigation systems, underground qanats that brought water from mountains miles away, his engineers created what seemed impossible, lush gardens in a desert. The Bagh-i-Dil Kusha, the Garden of Heart's Delight, had pavilions surrounded by apricot and pomegranate trees, roses, tulips, and fountains that ran year-round. The Spanish ambassador, Ruy González de Clavijo, who visited in 1404, described garden pavilions where Timur held court. The walls were hung with silk tapestries, the floors covered with carpets from Persia. Trees gave shade, fountains cooled the air. It was more beautiful than anything I had seen in Christendom. The bazaars were equally impressive. By 1400, Samarkand had become the commercial hub of the Silk Road again. Chinese silk worth its weight in gold, Indian spices and gemstones, Persian carpets, African ivory, European glass. The coins minted in Samarkand with Timur's name and the inscription, "The right hand of the Caliph," were accepted from Spain to China. Population estimates vary, but by 1404, Samarkand likely had 150,000 to 200,000 residents, making it one of the largest cities in the world at that time. Larger than London, comparable to Paris, approaching Cairo. Timur had done it. From ruins, he'd built paradise. But there was one problem. He couldn't stop. By late 1404, Timur was 68 years old. His body was a catalog of war wounds. The arrow injuries from his youth, sword cuts from dozens of battles, old fractures that never healed properly. His physicians worried constantly. But Timur looked at his empire and saw one glaring gap: China. The Ming Dynasty had overthrown Mongol rule in 1368. For Timur, who styled himself as a restorer of Mongol glory, he claimed descent from Genghis Khan through marriage, though historians debate the legitimacy. This was unfinished business. His ancestor had conquered China. Timur would finish what the Mongols started. In December 1404, he summoned his commanders. The announcement was met with horror. China was over 3,000 miles away. Winter was beginning. The route would cross some of the harshest terrain on Earth, the frozen steppes of Kazakhstan, deserts, and mountain passes where temperatures could drop to 40 degrees below freezing. But Timur had made his decision. He assembled the largest army of his career, 200,000 men. The logistics were staggering. Imagine moving a population the size of a medieval city across deserts and mountains in winter. Food for 200,000 soldiers, fodder for tens of thousands of horses, siege equipment, medical supplies. Supply wagons stretched for miles. This wasn't a raid, it was a full-scale invasion meant to last years. The Chinese weren't unprepared. The Ming Emperor Yonglei had spies throughout Central Asia. When word reached Beijing that Timur was mobilizing, Yonglei began preparations to defend the northern borders. But he also knew that winter in the steppes was its own defense. Let the old warlord march. Let winter do what the Chinese army might not be able to. On January 18, 1405, the army marched from Samarkand. The plan was to follow the ancient Silk Road northeast, cross through modern Kazakhstan, then invade through China's vulnerable northwestern frontier, the same route the Mongols had used to devastating effect 150 years earlier. For the first 2 weeks, progress was acceptable. But as they pushed deeper into the steppes, winter intensified. Temperatures plummeted to well below freezing. Snow buried the supply wagons. Horses died by the hundreds, their frozen carcasses left along the route. Men froze in their tents despite fires. Frostbite became epidemic. The army that had conquered half the known world was being destroyed by weather. The army reached Otrar, a significant city on the trade routes. Ironically, the same Otrar, whose governor's execution of Mongol envoys had triggered Genghis Khan's invasion that destroyed Merv 185 years earlier. Timur decided to rest there, wait for better weather. But his health was deteriorating rapidly. The fever started in early February. Within days, Timur was bedridden. His physicians tried everything. Medicines from his personal collection. He'd gathered remedies from every land he'd conquered. Treatments from Indian healers. Prayers from Islamic scholars. Nothing worked. The fever consumed him. Witnesses reported that in his delirium he spoke about Samarkand, about gardens, about buildings yet unbuilt. His sons gathered around his bed. His commanders stood vigil outside the tent. The entire army waited in the snow, knowing their empire hung in the balance. On January 18, 1405, exactly a month after leaving Samarkand, Timur died. The conqueror who had never lost a battle, who had defeated the Ottomans, crushed the Golden Horde, sacked Delhi, who had built an empire stretching 2,500 miles east to west, who had transformed a ruined city into paradise, died in a tent in Otrar, miles from home, his greatest campaign abandoned before it truly began. His body was preserved with camphor and musk, the same spices he'd brought from India decades earlier. The army turned around. The China invasion was over. They carried Timur back to Samarkand through the same snow and cold that had killed him. It took weeks. In Samarkand, they built him a tomb, the Gur-e-Amir, the tomb of the king. It was covered in the same turquoise tiles he had loved. The main dome, reaching 125 feet high, was a masterpiece, a ribbed structure that seemed to float above the building. Inside, they placed his body in a jade sarcophagus, black jade, imported from Mongolia, ironically from the direction of China, the country he never conquered. Above his tomb, they inscribed, "This is the resting place of the illustrious and merciful monarch, the great Sultan, the mighty warrior, Lord Timur, conqueror of the world." The conquering was over. The warrior who had never lost a battle was dead. His empire stretched from Turkey to India, and it was about to collapse. But here's what nobody tells you about Timur's death. It triggered a chain reaction that would change world history. His sons went to war within weeks. The empire that had taken 35 years to build began tearing apart in months. Armies that had conquered half the world now slaughtered each other for scraps of territory. Samarkand, the jewel Timur had built, became a prize to be fought over. For 4 years, blood ran through the streets he'd paved with marble. And then something completely unexpected happened. One of Timur's grandsons, a 26-year-old scholar named Ulugh Bek, took control of Samarkand, and instead of continuing the conquests, he did something that would have horrified his grandfather. He turned the Registan into a university. You can visit Samarkand today. The buildings Timur built still stand after 600 years. The Taj Mahal, built 240 years later, copied Timur's architectural secrets. In Uzbekistan, his statue towers over the capital, national hero, symbol of glory. But in Iran, Iraq, India, Turkey, they remember the pyramids of skulls. The Spanish ambassador who met Timur in 1404 wrote, "This man conquers with the sword, but he builds with wisdom." Both versions are true. Timur left the world more beautiful than he found it. He also left it drenched in blood. But Timur's death wasn't the end of the story. It set in motion a chain of events no one could have expected. His grandson, Ulugh Beg, inherited Samarkand, and instead of conquering more territory, he did something completely unexpected. He built an observatory. He mapped the stars. He turned his grandfather's war capital into the scientific center of the world. And then his own son had him beheaded for it. Why would a son kill his father for studying astronomy? What did Ulugh Beg discover that was worth dying for? And how did a warrior's grandson become the greatest scientist of the medieval world? That story, everything that happened after Timur, is waiting for you. Click the link at the top of your screen to find out what happened next. If you enjoyed this journey through history, subscribe to Secrets of Silk Road. We uncover these forgotten stories every daily. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the most powerful empires are built not with swords, but with ideas.